Hey, everybody, welcome back to the podcast. Today, my guest is Dr. Joey Webber. He's a world renowned expert in equanimity and a TIRI assistant professor at Bolton University in England. Joey and I take a deep dive into an array of topics around equanimity, including how to acknowledge and let go of emotions, how trauma affects our cognitive biases, finding the balance of compassion, passivity, and assertiveness in the workplace, the role of ego and self perception, and what the phrase water off a duck's back actually means. We also discuss the illusion of self, keeping the ego in check while balancing the desire for individuality, and navigating loneliness and the desire for companionship. This was such a beautiful conversation. And for those of you that don't know, Joey was my first ever podcast guest. And since that conversation, we've kept in touch and I'm very grateful. There is lots of tactical stuff in here, mainly centered around my own experience as I opened up on some of the stuff I'd been dealing with lately. And I was asking Joey how to use equanimity to find equanimity. I hope you enjoy this conversation with Dr. Joey Webber.
I think the symptoms that I was feeling that I didn't like was what I was talking about in the equanimity stuff as one of the enemies or dangers of equanimity, which was this kind of like apathy and this sense of, you know, if you've got compassion as a flagship and you're always trying to be nice and do this, and you end up losing your sense of self to a stable sense of self that's also like grounded in kind of its own values. So you kind of one of the dangers I think of treating equanimity as some kind of like, you know, I guess magic pill that you just I don't know, that you're not you've really got to work all the time. And I think if itself as a concept, you go, oh, I like that, and you intellectualize it, but you don't feel it. And you don't feel it because all the subconscious behaviors that you're doing don't add up to that. But even though you want it in the foreground, it's like the carrot, you're trying to get to it, but actually everything you're doing is kind of not that. It's just reproducing all this old stuff. And so I think are you frozen, by the way, or are you just deeply like thoughtful? Oh, you thought deeply thoughtful. I thought you frozen, and I was like, oh shit, I lost him.
Do you know, I love it. I'm deeply dyslexic. I'm trying to follow. One of my intentions today, and I'm going to leave this in, is if I don't understand something, I'm going to ask you to do it.
Me, yeah,
That's
totally.
on me. That's on me. I'm a little bit slow. So one of the things that I noticed on our first conversation is because with my dyslexia, like it's neurodivergence, I can mask very well. So I'll sort of like come back with something that kind of is like it made
looks
sense.
like you're on the same trajectory, but you're not.
Yeah, but I'm just trying to. This is what I do. I try and pretend that I understand. Oh yeah, no, and then I'll come back with something that's kind of like a little bit abstract, so no one other than me, possibly you, would notice that I'm on a totally different thing here, but I'm going to make it sound fancy.
Mate, I think that's really, really, really beautifully vulnerable and honest, and I think that's what's lacking in the world, because I think most of us are masking all the time. So to be raw and upfront and be like, look, I know my masks, and I'm prepared to take them off, is really cool.
Thank you. There's so many different threads I want to go down here, and oversharing is one that keeps popping up for me. And because I'm doing this podcast thing and I'm trying to be authentic and whatnot, but then at what point does that become like you're oversharing?
Too much. Yeah. That's a good question. It's a boundary thing, isn't it?
Yeah. And I mean, let's continue with what you were talking about. I tell you what, for those that have maybe not,
start, because we've we just kind of come in and started chatting, and to be honest, we're both probably, should we like start it?
Yeah. I think I want to keep some of this in anyways,
Yeah, keep it. Yeah, yeah.
but let's start by, so if someone's just tuned in, explain equanimity in the way that you would explain it to a 10-year-old.
Okay, really good question. Yeah. Okay, so little Jason, nice haircut by the way. Your hair's
My ego
grown.
thanks you.
Dan, no 10-year-old would say that, or would they? Do you think they're more in tune with themselves when you're young, and then you gradually become?
Yeah, but don't be reinforcing like my compliments with my natural beauty, because it has nothing on me as a value judgment.
Wow.
See, listen to me being all clever,
It's just
try to be clever.
enabling your mask to appear.
Yeah, no, it's just another thing I've been working on recently, like this, trying to get this ego thing, and like, oh, your hair looks nice or whatever, and I'm like, thank you. Like, and then like, I don't know, it's hard. It's hard because you want to take the compliment,
You
but
deserve the compliment. It's great hair.
yeah. I mean, if I think about it as like, okay, all right, I will take this compliment. I believe that my hairline has become stronger in the last 3 years due to lifestyle factors. That's it. So therefore, I will take the compliment because it's a sign of health, and I've worked very fucking hard at it.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah, that's
Because
a
I'm
good
worth
question. The
it.
ego, because you're worth it. Yeah, no product endorsements going on. Other hair is available. Um, uh, yeah, the ego question's great, isn't it? I don't think um, it's a massive part of equanimity is the ego. Because so 10-year-old, right, little Timmy, you're too fucking young for this shit, mate. Like, just go and have a sandwich. No, he probably gets it. Little Timmy gets it more than me, I think. Little Timmy is aware of. Well, he's not aware. He's very emotional and he's very judgmental because at that age he's been trained to be like that, like what you likes, what you dislike. So, who little Timmy thinks he is based upon his kind of feelings towards others at in some capacity. So to him, I'd just be like, you know your feelings. You know when you like something or don't like something. Try and just notice how much that kind of makes you do something or makes you behave. And what we try and find a balance or a middle ground to it all. So there's the two like extremes. So say someone pushes you. One extreme might be you want to punch them in the face or fight back. And one extreme might be absolute crying, tantrum, avoiding, I don't know, running away.
That's me.
Yeah, probably me
Fear.
too.
Yeah.
So with equanimity, little Timmy, what we're trying to do is kind of find that midpoint. So how could you have a midpoint to that? Because it's not a nice thing to happen to you.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So let's freeze frame on this so that I understand it. So, because of what's happened in Timmy's life up to that point, he is conditioned in a certain manner to respond in a certain way. One extreme, like you say, would be to lash out, could be to lash out, and the other one is fear, avoidance, running away. Can we talk about trauma? Does trauma
Yeah,
form something to do with this?
for
Because
sure. I
this is
mean,
something I've been doing in therapy, kind of.
okay, yeah.
Because,
So
like
like,
you, I was the scared little boy.
mm,
And so you go, something's happened. So it's perhaps something happened when I was very young, possibly in utero, possibly up to 18 months, maybe even later. Which, on that front, by the way, we should add that trauma and childhood trauma is not about blaming anyone and not about what actually happened. It's about my response to it. which goes into like attachment styles and stuff, right? So perhaps Timmy, let's go to sorry, Timmy, not Jason. Something happened when he was young that actually was maybe not a big deal, but he perceived it in a way that made him frightened and not safe.
Yeah.
So let's roll forward, and he's 10 years old.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
what we're
let's roll
saying
forward.
is,
So he's got an extreme conditioned emotional response to a behavior, right? And so
yes,
what we're teaching little Timmy is to acknowledge the feeling that he has, to find this kind of midpoint that he's comfortable with, that might be in line with, values of don't fight back because you'll make it worse, but also be assertive, practice that kind of, I didn't like what you did. And then it also might be tell a teacher, whatever it is, whatever you decide what it is, his response will be this kind of mid terrain. But that's only possible if he's also allowed to acknowledge his feelings and then let go. And that's kind of him being aware that things change, that this emotional state that he's in now won't last. Actually, technically it'll last about 90 seconds unless he keeps thinking about it, and then it'll keep adding 90 seconds, 90 seconds, 90 seconds. So it's like if he can somehow detach or let go or kind of blow his feelings away in the cloud, he can move on. And so that's equanimity. So it's like it's a behavioral response, bit of wisdom in there, but also a feeling and a sensational kind of emphasis of realizing that things change and impermanent and constantly like shifting and fluid. Does that make sense?
so it's like, how would little Timmy respond if he was a totally blank canvas? Is that like, how can I say it? Because his perception of like fear is colored, isn't it? And what you're saying is to like sit back, acknowledge that, allow it to come up so that we can see a more objective truth underneath. Is that correct?
Yeah, you could say that. Yeah. I mean, little Timmy's not going to know that because he's like a kid and he's just going to be like, this is a fucking nightmare. But like, I guess, yeah, we're telling him to acknowledge the feeling and then let it go and then practice like being assertive. So in future, he doesn't get punched. And so we're kind of steering him away from unhealthy coping strategies like avoidance, unhealthy emotional lack of emotional regulation, or tantrums, or fighting back, and ended up punching him 3-4 times harder. So it's like if your behavior is unhealthy, and then there's healthy in there somewhere in the center point, him doing whatever it is that's based upon who he is, but also with this letting go element, then he's able to kind of adapt with life. So whatever life throws at him, he's always finding that center point, and that has that natural ability, that kind of psychological flexibility to move with the punches. Which is
Nice pun. So
yeah, nice pun. Does that make sense?
yes. So yeah.
So
So
feel it, let it go.
let's roll this forward.
Yeah.
Let's just say it's me now. So
Yeah.
it's 35-year-old Jason, and end up in a situation where someone squares up to me for some reason. How can and obviously in that, obviously it's a difficult one because that's a very fast-paced thing, right? And that what we're saying is you need to train it in different ways before you go out and get someone to start on you. And
I think it's just like there's no. It's. I think it's a little bit about avoiding a kind of a perfect equation or hypothesis of if I get into this, what will happen? Because you're kind of like trying to preempt and control life if you know what I mean.
So
And
you're
it's
saying
like,
this can't be put on a spreadsheet?
yeah, well, I mean, maybe it can, but I think like, you know, say 30, 35, fast-paced thing happens. You're carrying the trauma of what happened when you were 10, 15, 20. If you haven't kind of got this sense of well-being now at your age and you've been consistently avoiding. So what happened when you were 10, you went absolute berserk but never told anyone and you put on a brave face. And so ever since then, you've been masking your responses in order to be liked because you're so scared of getting punched again. Right? So you've now got this character who's built up this solid sense of self that is based upon, I want people to like me, so I will basically mimic and adapt like a chameleon to them so they like me. Yeah. And then I will feel I've done a good job, you know, and I'll be liked and I can go away happy. So that is potentially unhealthy if you take it from the view of, well, that person's body at the same time has been kind of not processing this trauma. So what might happen is at a certain age is that it gets too much and it explodes, or it kind of seeps out into different mental health illnesses like anxiety. And so you could have this disconnect because essentially little Timmy's not being connected with his body if he's not responding in a healthy way. He's not having that sense of, you know, oneness. So it's creating a disparate connection, and then that's like getting like that over his life. Whereas actually he's come to a point now where his head's caught up and he's like, fucking hell, I want to sort myself out and be happy and blah, blah, blah. But it's that journey back to your body might be a long one. And that's what I think people refer to when they say healing. And they're going through this healing process, and it's all kind of essentially coming home to yourself, maybe your young self. And so that might be a lot of physical stuff. So like, I mean, I had this certain thing when I thought I'd mentally got all this figured, and I was absolutely shocked a few years ago when my body kind of got so bad that it kind of created this anxiety. And I was so shocked at not being able to deal with my anxiousness based on what I knew. But it's not about all what you know, it's about what you feel as well. It's that integration, that wholeness. And so it's very key to be working on all aspects of self. So 35-year-old Jason, for example, might be like, he might do the same as what 10-year-old Jason did, but he might equally go and acknowledge it and be that step more aware of what's happening to himself, and he might respond in a better way. He might confront, he might be assertive, he might, you know, allow himself to cry afterwards for 30 minutes and then feel good after that.
Yes,
And
because
recognize
I suppose the example that we gave of like violence is an extreme one, because we can't imagine someone reacting. They've not got that space to think in that moment necessarily. So if we looked at it of more of a metaphorical situation, so it could be something that, let's say someone says something to me which triggers this fear response. And if I'm not being equanimous, I will just go. I'll feel that feeling that maybe 7-year-old Jason felt. I'll go back to that moment, but not be aware of it, and I'll just avoid it or whatever, because that becomes a coping mechanism.
Exactly.
But what you're saying
Suppress
is you acknowledge it, you see it, you kind of feel it's there, right? And you are just mindful with that feeling, knowing that it doesn't necessarily define you. Is that correct?
Yeah, and that it will pass. Yeah. Perfect.
And you reckon about 90 seconds is the kind of...
Well, it was Jill Bolt Taylor. She's got this research, I don't know if you've heard of it, and she basically says that emotional reactivity, like chemically in the brain, is about 90 seconds. And of course, like if we time 90 seconds, if you make me angry now and we time 90 seconds, if I'm like on it on the 91st second, it'll be gone. But if I rethink that fucking prip Jason made me angry, I've just triggered another 90 seconds. So what happens is we spend a long time in anger mode because we have not lacked the ability to let go. And that's a little bit about, looking at yourself as well. So although you threw the dart, I'm throwing the second dart at myself, really, because I'm thinking about it. But it doesn't feel like that. So I'll just go, wow, Jason is an absolute asshole. But really, it's like, yeah, he has been an asshole in that particular moment. But, he's not probably a pure asshole, born an asshole, and will die an asshole. He's got some nice qualities. But instead, I've made it so, like, massive in my mind because I've not had that ability. I've lacked that ability to let go.
Yeah. So that makes me think about workplace stuff.
Okay.
So let's give an example of someone. We've all had a boss who is clearly very stressed and basically, I can't remember the actual term in like psychology, but will like impart or deflect. There's a different word for it. His stress or her stress,
Project. Yeah.
project, yes, project that stress onto everyone else.
Yeah.
So you come, you come into work, you're having a great day.
Yeah. And you suddenly feel that the energy has shifted and it's gone negative and
Yeah, and
all
someone
that.
starts, biting at you or whatever, and I feel like for me, if I'm in that sort of example, if I'm not like a 9 or a 10 in my own
Mm.
mood, if I'm like
Mm.
7
Yeah. Yeah.
or
Yeah.
lower, I will get dragged into it
Yeah. 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 That's a good one. Yeah. Yeah.
and I will bite as well. And it's like, but how do we, in that situation, how do we find equanimity? As in, how do we respond to that manager or boss with compassion, yet remaining assertive and not being a walkover? Because I think that's where I think I don't want to be like kind of laughing it off or just carrying on, because I want you to
Mm.
know that you've upset me and I don't
Yeah.
want you
Yeah.
to do
Yeah.
it again.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But I feel like in that situation, what I would do is I would communicate it, but I'd maybe have a tint of like resentment, anger,
Yeah. Yeah.
rather than like an
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
objective.
Yeah.
So, and this is a very selfish conversation, but hopefully anyone who's listening could relate. But like, yeah, I feel like I'm good at setting that boundary, but I could maybe be a little bit more equanimous in that moment to not be judging that person as much as I do.
Okay, I would immediately say you need to be a bit kinder on yourself to your responses, and potentially there's a an assumption in the concept of equanimity that somehow at all times we can be like this perfect, that like as if there is this perfect response. I think there's something in what you're saying is, and what I'm hearing from some of the questions is like there's like a perfect response. And I think one of the biggest things about equanimity, what I've understood, is that different people's perfection will look different, and there isn't necessarily going to be this like perfect, solution.
Yeah, with a
It's like
score out of
trying to,
10.
yeah, it's like that's what it is. It's like you're saying, look, I got 8 out of 10, and I'm saying, well, that is fucking amazing, really.
But
I think that is absolutely
but yeah,
amazing. You've
who's
got a
who's
slight
defining that
tinge.
scale?
Well, exactly. Yeah, it's like, is it society's scale? Is it your scale? Is it, your boss's scale? So I think I totally understand that you were trying to find these ways of dealing with complexity and chaos, and you're saying, look, there's a character, and he's or she's projecting, and I'm trying to be equanimous. So how do I deal with that? And it's essentially like you're trying to be compassionate to that person, but also compassionate to yourself. Where's the mid ground? And this mid ground is going to be a trial tested sphere, if you like. And there'll be, if you see it as a continuum, there'll be harder responses and lesser responses. And I think it's about you testing what you're comfortable with and how you feel. And I think the felt level, raw felt level, like experience is more important than the intellectual. Oh, did I respond right? Or, have I judged that? And so it's how you feel in the interaction. So if you feel that your values or your self has been protected and you've asserted yourself and you feel that you've been compassionate, even a little bit, all of that's kind of information to you that you're on the path, that you're doing a bit better. And also it's like all the different stages that we're at. Like, I was terrible with assertiveness. I'm only just practicing it now. And because it happens so quick, like, your body triggers and you're in fight, flight, freeze. And you're like, there's no thinking capacity there. Oh, shall I practice compassion on judgment? You're just naturally reacting habitually. So when you change or shift, you're noticing slight differences, and you should celebrate those massively, than going, oh, actually, I wasn't like that, even though I did this. There's this tinge of thingy. You might always have a tinge of resentment, and that might not be a problem. That might be very healthy, because it's a little bit of protection or a little bit of realism of like, I can't be perfect. If there is an absolute tosser and they're projecting all kinds of shit, I'm going to try my best to stick up for myself, but I'm not going to take that home. I'm not going to allow that to make me feel bad. I'm going to practice self-compassion as well, of like being kind to myself, recognizing that person is, God knows what's going on in his life, if there's some illnesses or, whatever, or his stress from his position, her position. So you kind of, that's all equanimity. It's kind of all of it, you know what I mean? It's all of the thinking level, understanding their situation, your perspective, but the felt level of, I don't feel that that's good, but so it could be removing yourself from the situation. It could be practicing different forms of compassion, because compassion is like quite a woolly little concept, right? Unless you really understand types of compassion and
Removing
subjugation, control, all of that could be compassionate.
Yes. Removing is a good one as a strategy, I think.
Yeah.
Because if you're confronted with a situation, the metaphorical punch in the face, the deflecting of a coworker or boss, you will allow yourself that space, right? And I've done this before, actually, where I've said, I'm just going to go for a break. I need to go for a walk.
Yeah.
I'll be back in a minute. And then just go.
Yeah.
And I've literally done this before. And then I don't even get into a conversation. I'm just going. And then come back and go, how you doing? And then usually everything is fine. So I think perhaps that's a useful strategy. If you feel like you're going to bite or not respond in a way that is aligned with your values or your higher self, then give yourself a little bit of room somehow.
Yes, space. I mean, that's the expression, water off a duck's back. Probably heard this, right? I remember listening to Eckhart.
Yeah, tell me about, let's talk about that expression. Interesting.
And so when ducks fight, they fight all the time, right? And they go crazy, they can go really crazy at each other. And basically they have this massive fight, wings everywhere, beaks in all kinds of places. and then what you see on the pond or the lake is that they shake, right? They shake after every fight, and they go, and then they just carry on gently swimming. Water off a duck's back. And so that's why this expression comes. It's like, let it go. And it's the humanness, the stickiness that we have the trouble with. So one strategy to help let you go might be, like you say, go and get a breath of fresh air. But there's loads of other strategies that you could implement to allow that to pass through you. So a bit like we're talking about little Timmy and the aggression and getting confronted. It's let life be like water off a duck's back, in that whatever happens to you, feel it fully, but then let it go.
Yeah.
And it's that letting go process that keeps you in that equanimous space. If you're in emotion, if you're sticky and you're like Velcro like with a response and intellectual loop or a thought loop or some kind of you've not let it go. And so that's the biggest thing I would say. What I think is coming is try and be like a duck.
Yeah. Do you know, it's a really good analogy. I heard it recently and I was kind of like, but what maybe not apparent from that example when you first think about it is there's like a layer to it. If you imagine those ducks fighting or whatever, and then they just crack on with the day or whatever, there's like a recognition.
You actually can't see the water either.
Well, if you think about what the ducks would be thinking if they could think, which they can't.
Maybe they are. How do you know?
Maybe a duck has self-awareness. Who knows?
You need a duck expert for your next podcast.
Yeah. Love a mallard. So it's one of those, like they say, is it cellar is the beautiful combination of words in the English language, apparently.
Cellar door?
Cellar door. Cellar
I've
door.
never heard that. What is that?
It's just the way that it kind of like the
or sell at door.
No, as in your the cellar, a wine cellar.
Yeah.
Door.
Yeah.
Cellar door.
Oh,
so
cellar door.
It's like the most beautiful combination of like words, just the way it kind of rolls off. I
basically you're trying to make them
about. I was thinking the same about mallard. Mallard is a lovely word, isn't it?
Mallard. Yeah, it is a nice word. Yeah, but to me says we should be Spanish.
Mallard.
Celador sounds quite Spanish. Mallard. De mallard.
De mallard. Es muy bien. I've probably mixed up my... Yeah. Anyways, right.
Mallards.
Let's go back to ducks. So...
Yeah.
I was going to say something intellectual there, so don't let me miss out on that. So... the mallard, but also it's like an animalistic thing. So if the duck was thinking, it's kind of like we're both just fucking ducks. We're not fucking ducks. We're both just ducks, and we're both. Yeah.
I'm from Celadori while I fuck a duck.
I wonder why those fishermen wear those. Wear that camouflage.
Yeah. Where's that coming from?
It's all to do with work as well, which is really interesting. Right now, I'm picturing myself on a walk because we are based at a fishery where there are loads of mallards.
There you go.
Isn't it weird?
It's all serendipity.
Yeah. So
equanimity, baby.
But yeah, but the ducks are animals, so they can. So they're not like they're not getting hung up on each other, like, oh, that guy, oh, he just like tried to peck my ass off. It's like, well,
he ate that seed.
Yeah, it's like we're just ducks and we're trying to get through life. And
I think that's where the ego comes in, because what's creating the stickiness and the intellectual kind of I can't believe they did that and what a fucking twat and I can't let it go and I can't let it go-ness is the ego. So that is the ego in action. It's like, whoa, I shouldn't have been attacked. I'm amazing. I'm a really cool person and I deserve all this, like, love and respect and all that lot. And you do. But equally, it's like that over kind of attached, inflated sense of self of like, I deserve it all and they're the problem. I'm perfect. What's your problem? If you were all perfect, I'd be really happy. And you're not, so make me happy. And it's that type of, that's the trap, the ego trap. It's like the honey trap of it all. And that's why we can't let go.
Yeah.
It's because really, if we had a handle on our ego and a healthy sense of self, we'd be able to let go quite readily because we wouldn't be holding so many grudges and resentments and kind of, it's like you're carrying the weight of your past on your shoulders. And when you meet someone, you don't really meet them. You're meeting the whole baggage. So if you say something that triggers, you're going to get, you know what I mean? It's like non-stop. That's how people relate to each other. But if everyone could just cut that package off us and present an authentic, in the moment, mindful person with compassion and equanimity, then it would actually get on really well and function quite well as a society. We'll be quite connected and harmonious with each other.
Yeah, the ego thing is constant work, isn't it? Can I read you something?
Yeah, of course, yeah.
It might sound completely lame now, but
Is it about ducks?
no, it's about little Timmy.
I went to the Chinese restaurant and there was this duck, and it was playing all this bloody romantic music, and it was sat opposite me playing a violin, and I was in this restaurant thinking, this is the most bizarre experience of my life, and there's this, and I couldn't understand it, and the duck started lighting candles and stuff, and I went, oh, waiter, I ordered the aromatic duck. It's not my joke, that.
Yeah, that was horrendous.
Tim's
So, a very good friend of mine, who I really appreciate, who sometimes gets on my wick because he's the one who pulls me up on stuff all the time. But he's also the only person that will tell me.
Yeah, how it is.
And we were talking about ego, and he sent me this thing. I haven't told him, I don't think. He sent me something on WhatsApp, and then I saved it as a reminder. So I think this is quite good. So he's like, okay, we might not keep this in. It might be boring. So he said, you're a highly confident individual, but I'm not convinced you truly believe it. Ego equals confidence. Be the Jason who's comfortable in his own skin. Be the Jason who's creative. Be the Jason who's naturally fun to be around. Be the magnetic Jason who attracts. Don't be the Jason who's always advertising and introducing himself as if he's broken or unwanted. This is popping up a lot at the moment. Where is Jason? Take away the gym. Is Jason still there? Take away your vanity, your hair. Is Jason still there? Take away your podcast. Is Jason still there? Take away your cold plunge, sauna, steam room. Is Jason still there? Take away everything. Is Jason still there? Who is Jason? He is none of those things. They are the things that they are things you do or have. Your future missus is looking for Jason, not the things you think you need to be complete. By all means, do these things, but do not expect them to complete you. I felt a bit emotional reading that.
Oh, that's nice.
So I'll credit him. That's my friend Dave Turnoff.
Right, he did it. Yeah. It's lovely.
It is lovely, and I do try, and it's hard to answer because what have we spoke about as well? Like, other than obviously we've been, but it was like, the gym, the podcast, and stuff, and that's and I think my perception is like that's what people see. Guy with pretty hair goes to gym, does podcast. There's my value judgment.
Yeah. Well, that's one of the meditations, analytical meditations that you can do is around where is the self, and what happens is it takes you through a journey of, you practice the mindfulness first. You've got this sense of, oneness or presence, and then stability of mind. And then what you're supposed to do is then practice that analytically and use that stability to kind of find where the self is. And from the Buddhist perspective and many other perspectives, I think there is no self. There's no one here, really, because if you know, that's what you're supposed to do, like, i.e. your fingers, i.e. your blood, i.e. your bones, i.e. your liver, i.e. your legs, i.e. your feet, i.e. your mind, i.e. your heart. And when you separate all that stuff out, and if you were to just rest it all on a table and go, oh, look, that's all that stuff, there's no Jason there in all of that lot. Or is there? Where would you say he is?
Yeah.
And then...
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Sorry, I'm interrupting, maybe unnecessarily. Carry on.
No, you feel free to, but yeah, so it's like, where would you say is? You're looking at yourself, deconstructed version on the table, not there. So is he then a collection of everything in a certain form? Is that Jason? And it's like, it isn't, because it is, insofar as it can objectively label and identify with Jason, but ultimately there's nothing there that's real Jason.
Yeah, I do.
Other than the conditioned stuff, like the gym and the podcast and all that lot, which is you now.
I suppose the argument against what we were just talking about is, I suppose you could say, well, okay, I am not the outcome of those things, but I am the person that shows up and does the thing. So, like, does that make sense? So
Yeah, there's something behind all that that's steering your direction.
yeah, so I can place value on my ability to be disciplined and do that stuff. Or should I not?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Good question.
Uh,
Good question.
But what was I gonna say? Have you ever done the like looking for your head meditation?
No, what's that? It sounds like you're looking for your head.
It's an interesting one. So just with what you were talking about before, and dispelling the illusion of self. So what you can do is you like, and if anyone's driving or whatever, don't do this, because we're obviously talking about meditation. But you sort of all right, just do it now. So sit there, close your eyes.
Oh, really?
We
Cool.
might not be able to like sink into it straight away, but just try and arrive. Just let go. And I never do guided meditation, by the way, so I don't know what the fuck I'm doing here. But if you
don't say that bit.
Think about, like, where is Joey? Where is Jason? Where is whoever is listening now? Is it, like you say, is it your feet? Is it your knees, your liver? And then look for what's looking. So look for your own head. And if you but in a really brief, just very quickly, just see what happens when you just try and look for your head. Did you notice anything? That was an actual question.
Oh, you actually speaking to me?
Did you notice it? It's hard to settle into it because we're on a podcast. And
the looker, I would say, is awareness. And I'll say awareness is like you're aware of looking.
Yeah.
And you're aware of your knee. So when it says self, that's what I think of self, is just weird, unintermittent awareness, consciousness. Yes. It's like a torchlight. And then the story is a projection of everything that you've lived and experienced. So like Joey as the story, as you know, had ex-parents, grew up here, blah, blah, as his friend, spots that football team and all that lot. So that's me. But really, it's not really me. Like the real me is just the awareness behind that. And so it's like this awareness and then sense of self. And when you in meditation, like the looker, that's awareness. You realize, oh, I don't have to be like this. I don't have to be like this. It's quite powerful. It's quite scary as
Yeah, and the
well.
looker is
Like a lot of
not
this stuff,
the looker's not behind here.
it's not even your eyes. Yeah, you could take your eyes out and you still have the sense of self. Or if you keep your eyes, take your heart out, would you still have the sense of self? You know, where is it? So is it just the mind? And then what is the mind? So nature of mind. Like, you know, you get into a whole philosophical like debate about, well, where, and that, to be honest, a lot of this stuff, without the right training and stuff, it's good to, obviously, I think we all naturally make you think about it, but it's scary as hell. It's absolutely scary as hell when you really deal with this concept and realize I'm not me, or I'm not who I thought I was. And it's like, well, that just pulls the rug from beneath you and you're like a crumbling mess. So it's dangerous, really. And I think mental health wise, it's not necessarily that good to think about like that.
It's a little bit,
I think if
it's
you're on
quite
a
a white
spiritual
knuckle.
mission,
It's white knuckle. I mean, we can talk about Bolton Towers.
Yeah.
But if you've maybe not got like a little bit of a framework around spiritual practice, and then you jump. See, I found The Power Is Now, Eckhart Tolle. I found it a difficult read actually at the time because, and I think maybe because there's something about that dude that's just a little bit weird. Because he sounds like this like enlightened Bond villain. You are not. I went out the other day,
so funny.
And I just looked at a tree for 1 hour, and I'm like,
"You're the looker."
Like, I get it, man.
Are you the leaf?
But yeah,
do you get it?
I do get it. But yeah, it's a bit scary because he's basically just like, there's no such thing as this.
Subject, object. Well, that's the other thing is like, it's just oneness and we're actually connected. And like you and me, there's no separation.
This is the idea I like the most.
He scares me to death.
Like, I think, am I you and are you me? Do you know what I mean? Like, are we just this fucking, like, it's oneness, isn't it? Like,
I know this oneness. It sends me a bit under the oneness because I don't really want to be a cosmic energy ball of fucking oneness. I want to be me, but I guess that's my ego talking.
Yep.
Ego.
Yeah. Ego.
I just want to be me.
Yeah.
I want to be the equanimity guy. I want to have it all to myself.
Yeah.
But this idea of, we transcend and evolve and we're all compassionate love, orb of energetic bliss and all that shit. All that shit. Well, that's like where we're headed if you believe that, and there's no self and you're practicing that, and I'm like, well, obviously I don't understand it, but so it's like complete wrong. Basically, I'm ignorant, and of all these misconceptions are creating the fear, which is keeping me bound to this kind of rigid sense of self. How I'm behaving, how I am, and repeating certain patterns to keep me in a karmic loop that's just going to make me separate because I'm not ready to embrace it.
Yeah. It's interesting, isn't it? we just had this thing about how oneness, and then but there's such an allure to just pull it back and just go coffee, gym, where me,
yeah,
like.
Well, if it's oneness, it's like no relationships, your family, not no relationships, but it just puts a different spin on it all. And it's like, I've worked all my life to have this relationship, to have these children, and my job and my car, and I don't want that. I don't want ultimately, not that that's been a bad thing, because it's helped create a healthy sense of self, and I'm practicing, I'm practicing now compassion and evolving based upon my little things, but ultimately, it's like different realities. It's like this is one reality, but then the ultimate reality is that we're all just like cosmic oneness and all that lot. And, there's no self. But actually, I've been really getting caught up and crying my eyes out and spending years in worry and turmoil and angst over this. And you're not telling me that that's not fucking real now. You know what I mean? It's like, that's not an easy thing to just embrace and accept as humans. So I think we're like, it fascinates me that everyone's like, somehow desperate to like get this sense of oneness and stuff, but at the same time they're absolutely desperate to cling on to their separate sense of self. It's like this polarity, and then this equanimity in the middle of like probably the embrace of all of that. Maybe you experience that oneness from this sense of individualness, you know, maybe that the equanimity of those concepts needs to
try
come
to
in.
stuff your ego into the oneness.
Yeah, just slip me in the back, will you? I've been good. Really fucking good. Have you not heard me guided meditations? I fucking get
well,
me in
that's
the back,
basically what Up was.
but
That's why we liked Up. Not Up.
Oh well.
What's the one? Soul.
Soul, what's
Have you not
that?
seen Soul? As in Soul
Disney.
Hat. Yeah.
I think I have, but I can't remember it now.
It's actually it's a really
Like,
nice film, but it's all about like how the soul lives on and stuff. And I think there's this stuff about the oneness or whatever. But yeah, a great example because it's is it Disney, Pixar?
Oh, I have seen it. Yeah. Yes,
They are
like
little
Soul. Yeah.
souls. So but the ego is still
Yeah.
there. So they're kind of like they're playing with those two things.
Yeah. Fuck, that's true. Yeah.
I might watch it tonight. I haven't. I don't think I've watched it. Here we go with my trauma. I don't think I've watched it because there's loads of like Disney films that I used to watch with my stepdaughter when I had a stepdaughter. So like it's a little bit of a difficult lift for me. But also I've realized that the only way that you can get past that is to create a new memory with a higher signal in terms of the emotion. For example, so if I went and watched that film now and I was feeling down and depressed and not in the best state of mind, that's probably not going to fix it. But if if me and you was like, oh, should we watch that film tonight and we'll analyze like the oneness or whatever, and we had a great time and like it was a nice memory, perhaps then that's a good way to like overcome these things, right? You create a new memory around that like trauma response. But anyways, I'm not qualified or any of that. I'm totally bro science in.
I think easing out. I mean, if we see trauma as like a collection, a constellation of thoughts and emotions based upon a past event that keeps reappearing in our minds, it's like, and we haven't fully processed it perhaps or something. It's like just recognizing the same as you would treat the trauma responses to a normal thought of, shall I go and, you know, get a pint of milk out and pour it in the garden? I don't know. You know, it's placing importance upon the nature of the thought, and it's that kind of significance that when we engage creates the kind of loop, and then that's when the emotions will come, because then we're in it then. So we got to somehow normalize the thoughts and then just let it all come and then let it all fucking go. And not like, oh shit, this is a really important thought, because then we go, this must mean something, and we attach meaning to it all, and we're going, oh, it means this and that, and am I a bad person and all this stuff. It's the nature of intrusive thoughts. It's like, you know, sorry, go on, mate.
No, you continue.
I was just going to say, like, you know, thought comes up, and it's normally worried voice of going like, you know, oh, there's something wrong, or blah, blah, blah. Oh, do you not remember this? Or, oh, you're so lonely now. And then you'll have another thought that engages with that thought, and it'll be like what appears to be comforting voice, which will go, oh, don't worry about that, mate. Oh, yeah, it's not your fault, or blah. And you think that comforting voice is being nice, but it's actually false comforting voice. False comfort is engaged with the thought, and then that now creates this loop, and you're thinking properly and emotions trigger. So you need to somehow have that wiseness, wisdom, and cut through it and go, look, this is coming up, and actually wise mind says don't engage, let go, be like a duck, and that will cut that shit. If you're in that loop, then that's intrusive thoughts, and that's anxiety, and then you create fear on the back of thoughts, or what if I think of this? So you're very future orientated. You're scared to go in certain environments because it might trigger. I don't want to speak to them because they might trigger. So you're trying to control. The nature of it is control all the time. But you're trying to do something like active when actually you're being quite a passive victim to your past.
Yeah.
So ritually allow that shit to come up and slash it.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I've just done. So we were talking about film, and I went, "Oh, I'll talk about my trauma now, and I'll breathe life into it." Do you know what I mean? So I dropped in. Whereas if I was being more equanimous, perhaps, I don't know, I could have noticed that. But here's the thing: what is being vulnerable? I could have noticed it and sort of let go of it, and we're just having a conversation about this film. But maybe true equanimity actually is being compassionate with that response, because it is part of the broader thing. It is not a spreadsheet. There's no formula, and this conversation is around talking about equanimity, and therefore it's okay to bring that up. But I often think
nice. Yeah, I love it.
Sometimes, yeah, precisely what you just said. I'm just going to, but it's but yeah, I've been like that before. I've been at a family gathering, and I don't know, the song from Frozen had come on because one of the kids put it on or whatever, and just it'll trigger this response for the same reason, and I'm like, oh, I can't listen to it. Oh, I don't know. I don't want to listen to this because it makes me cry or whatever. And it's just me. By the way, just let you know, I've been through some hard shit. And
false comfort.
Yeah. So that's the false comfort. So if I wasn't being so egotistical, I'd sort of know it's saying, a song. Carry on with my conversation.
Yeah, it's a fucking song.
Yeah, don't become
exactly
it this mental masturbation all the time. I mean, we shouldn't read masturbation and Disney into the same conversation, but there we go.
Well, yeah, the only thing I'd say is when you said that's my ego, when people say that, I think it's like a non-compassionate response. We've got to really be soothing, and close to our ego. It is us. So there's no point going, oh, it's my fucking ego. It's like, yeah, I'm thinking that, and it's brought this up, and I'm going to be kind to myself, and I'm going to let it go with kindness. That's different than going, oh, let it go, it's just my fucking ego, because then it'll have that edge to it, and the residue
edge to it. Is it?
Well, there's just a residue edginess to you, and you're accepting, you're self-compassionate, you're allowing, you're curious, you're open. All of that's equanimity, because you're just in the center zone, and it doesn't fucking matter what comes at you. You're always going to be in that central sphere of knowing how to deal with it all, and that's what I think equanimity is, really.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm just. I've been multitasking. I've been caught out because I've been so. I've been so embraced in the conversation.
You're allowed to.
That see, normally what I do is I keep on top of my notes as I'm going through, and I'll.
Well, let me just carry on while you're multitasking, because really, this isn't because I don't know if people are listening. They have got trauma. They're like, what fucking, just trying to minimize it. It's not a reductionist type of approach of oh, your trauma's not real. It's very real. Something happened to you, right? An emotional response at the time out of fear or whatever it was, and it remains. And so what I'm saying is now it's a way of dealing with it is like that, but that's not to negate, actually, you may need therapy for that, and you might need to express it. And for me, I needed to process the emotion. I think I thought, I intellectualized myself above the emotion, so I didn't feel it. And I remember one time, I mean, this is where all the traditions come in and kind of practices, and I had Reiki, and I was quite suspicious of Reiki because I was like, energy, I don't know, I'm kind of open-minded, but I'm not fully open, as people will say he's a hippie. But it's there's this, and I thought I try everything. And I had this session, And she was just like, allow your thoughts to just be like what happens and blah blah blah, and just see where they go and follow them out. So, and what happened was really interesting. I had thought of every moment of violence that had occurred to me throughout life. And there was little snippets of like people in primary school, kids, bullies up until high school. Then it was, relationships. And there was about 6 or 7 series that were quite significant to me. And as I was thinking about them, I was crying my fucking eyes out. I was like, oh. And it was like me processing that. And then when I came out of the session, she said, you had a lot of, and I didn't tell her this, but she said you had a lot of fear to do with aggression in your psyche, and it's been cleared now. And I was like, fucking hell. And it was like, I didn't even know, but it was like, I thought I'd dealt with all that because I'd cried at the time or whatever, but I hadn't. As a 30 whatever year old man, I was still carrying some of that baggage on a psychic subconscious level. And I didn't even fucking know. I thought I'd just got over it. So that was, you could say, processing past trauma in this particular healing tradition. That was Reiki. So I really do think you can't think your way out of stuff, and you can't, respond your way out of stuff. Like if you have had, and we have had trauma. I mean, Gabor Mate is amazing with trauma. If you want to listen to trauma, you listen to him. And about it doesn't have to be this huge thing. It could just be a time in which we perceived a lack of, support or something. We've all had that. So we're all carrying trauma. So somehow we need to be able to process that. And obviously some people's are massive compared to others. I would say I'm very privileged to only have tiny trauma, tiny T. But some people have got huge bloody stuff. So process it, rather than just try and be mindfully compassionate and accept it, you know what I mean? Because that's just going to freak you out.
I'm going to check you there, but also be compassionate towards your own trauma. So what you did there is you went, oh, I'm privileged. Like my trauma's nothing to which you're right. But but we do this because we're privileged and we've had like nice upbringings or whatever. So we feel guilt around like who are you to be traumatized from your nice upbringing or whatever?
Exactly.
And I am making an assumption about your upbringing or whatever, but I have a feeling that we maybe have like some similarities here, because some stuff you've said is very similar to mine, and it's like, like and this is what I'm doing in therapy at the moment. It's like you kind of like you feel guilty because I've had a really nice upbringing, but we all have trauma.
Guilt.
And trauma doesn't mean that you've been smacked around the face and whatever, like insert horrendous thing that could happen to you. But it does not negate how it made you feel at the time, and then how you show up for the rest in your relationships and whatnot.
Yeah, no, good. Yeah, really
Sorry
nice, nice stuff.
Totally interrupted you there.
No, it's good. I was just thinking, if I was a listener with heavy trauma, I didn't want to sound like I was trivializing it. So I was trying to amuse myself. But you're very right. Whatever it is needs to be processed and dealt with properly, doesn't it?
So I want to talk to you about, I've got a few different threads. Equanimity and loneliness.
Ooh, nice.
Because if we, if we take a sort of maybe like a Buddhist standpoint on something like that, there's this attachment thing, right? So, fuck it. Let's take me as an example. So, I've been single for like 3 years. I have quite a nice life. I have a very nice life. I get to do lots of fun stuff. I really love going to the gym and all the rest of it. And I love doing the podcast, and I enjoy my job, and all these things. And quite often, certainly when I get tired, so when I run out of energy, neural energy or physical, muscular endurance to be doing the things all the time, tends to be like Saturday afternoon can be a bad one for me because I've had a great week. I've been training all week. I do this class. It's my favorite thing in the world. It's horrendous. Like if you've ever done a high rocks class, it's my favorite thing in the world. I love it. And then, I hang around afterwards. Like there's a joke in the gym because like Jason never goes home. I'll be stretching down for like 50 minutes or something. Then I'll drive down to the sauna. Then I'll spend some time in the sauna chatting away at people. Then I go do my big shop. Then I go for a coffee. Then I eat some cheese and non-processed like protein in the car. And then I drive home and put my shopping away. And if I've not got anything on Saturday afternoon, I'll just go, I'm tired because I've had a big morning. And then it comes in. You're on your own.
Yeah. Yeah.
And to allow, like, how can one like not be attached to the idea of not being lonely, yet still have the innate drive and that kind of let's talk about it from like a men's concept, because what we're talking about here is being single, isn't it? And whatever. So there's like this drive to want to go out and find a partner, which is like testosterone and libido and stuff like that, and all these healthy hormones and chemicals that we have. And my fear is that if I don't want to lose that drive and just end up like a lonely monk. because that's the extreme side of it, where people that are totally at peace or whatever and monks, but they've just, I wanted to say given up, but I don't mean it like that, but they've basically gone, I'm not going to have a missus.
Yeah.
I'm not going to have kids.
Yeah.
How does one find the balance between being okay on your own, but still having like that little bit of a fire and drive?
Yeah, so nice. I'm sorry to hear about loneliness, but I think it's a massive cultural symptom of high levels of individualism and
Lack of community.
capitalist society, as in like we're all like, I don't know, we're kind of confined to our own houses now. And I was looking at this study the other day, and it was like when you were a kid, you got the most people around you, and then basically as you go up, you kind of reduce that to like one person. And then if you have kids, you've got like a very small little network. And then obviously your hobbies come in and that, but really like you start off quite a lot and then you slowly isolate. And I think it's really interesting phenomenon that we've got this massive attachment to the 2.4 idea of life, which is changing 2.4? A little bit, I guess. You know, like 2.4 kids. You got two kids, and you've got like you're a family of four, and it's basically just this idea of, if I've achieved, I've got a family and a kids and a house and a car and a steady job, and that's it. The American dream, really. And we've internalized that to such extent. And also, you could look evolutionary. We want a partner, and we want to reproduce some kind of legacy. You can look at it from that perspective, biological perspective. So there's a societal thing and a biological thing, but there's also that we're at an age now where I think things are changing, and I think each individual can live like their life the way they see fit, and they don't have to conform to stereotypes and stuff like that. But I do think loneliness is a massive problem. I do think it's a big problem in this day and age, especially with the rise of technology. And I think it's around needs and wants. The question boils down to needs and wants, and it's like, what do you need in your life, or what do you want? And we can get the wants, and they can kind of fluctuate, but maybe I want a partner, but I don't need it because I'm quite happy right now in my life. And, you know, that will change based upon your age, that kind of formula, I guess. And I think essentially acceptance is the big thing underlying this. And it's like acceptance to what is versus, you know, worry or fear of not what might be. And I think the equanimity with all of this is embracing your own circumstance. Like, and no circumstance is kind of perfect or ideal. Like, there's always another job or a partner or a country we want to be. It's always elsewhere. It goes back to this kind of very, very subtle neuroses of assuming that the next moment's going to be better than this one. Like, the next thing is going to be better than this. Like, I'm listening to this because I'm going to then do this. And there's always that kind of running treadmill type mentality. And so I think we run the risk of using scaffolding a lot of things and being in that position, like, you know, because underneath it all, we're not content with the now or this present moment. Like, we want something else. And so if we keep bringing it back, and you go, you find peace and well-being in the now, and there isn't a such thing as anything else, really, because you're only ever in falling into the now or this present moment. You've got ideas of what you think might make the now better, but whether that's true or not, I don't really know. Like, you know, you can have many people in unhappy relationships feeling stuck, you know, stuck in their jobs, stressed out because of kids, you know, so there's no kind of ideal formula. And I would just be accepting the common humanity of it all, of that loneliness is a part of being human. We are social animals. We need mates at times. And, you know, you can make a conscious choice of whether you want a mate or not. And I think it's about you owning your life stage and being like, well, I'm happy right now not being in a partnership and I won't feel guilty about it. Or it could be, I really want a partner to celebrate my life and their lives, and so we can make it better. And if there's some sense of loss, of like, I want to fulfill a void, you know, then that might be kind of like, oh, I want something else. I would say we all feel that sense of voidness, of like wanting something else, because that is the condition. When you get the one, you want the next thing and the next thing, and it's all this stuff. I feel lonely a lot, actually, all the time. Because even though when you're surrounded by people and you've got the kids, if you know impermanence and stuff, it's constantly changing and you're changing. You might not have them one day, and you know, you don't know what's going to happen around the corner or what illness is going to come. And there's an unsettlingness to being alive. So there's no such thing as having it all and feeling it all. It's constantly changing. And so with the loneliness, I kind of just I've tried to like reframe loneliness as to important reflective time. So when I'm busy, I'm doing other stuff. And then when I'm on my own, I do that a lot of friendships. I think I've got terrible like friendships in the fact that I could maybe text them once a year, twice, see people 2-3 times a year. That's it. There's no regular person that's checking or have conversation with anymore, other than the small family unit and a couple of workmates. They become your kind of friends, and that's lonely. So, you know, it takes the form of clubs then, of like, oh, I'll go to the gym and there's a couple of guys I've chat to at the gym and play football, and I've got the football team now, and you know, there's snippets of banter around that, and like your group, the goals, it's like you get banter and you get some kind of social connection. That's your kick. It's not that much, and it's superficial. So there's a large portion of life that you've got to kind of nourish. And I view it as I'm accepting my circumstance as it is, not as how I want it to be. And that's the lesson.
I suppose, thank you for that. And Yeah, I'm sorry to hear that you also feel lonely. I suppose firstly is like loneliness, yeah, isn't necessarily a physical thing. It can be an emotional thing. Um
Yes.
and I suppose I'll tell you what I'm thinking when you say that. Well, it's all right for you. I'm literally thinking, however, I'm an animal who has not procreated. And that's like a big
Mm. Oh, right. Yeah, yeah,
that's
yeah.
a big thing that's kind of
Yeah,
still
yeah, yeah.
there. So I'm like, I can, can do all this spiritual stuff and that, but I've still got this drive to want to have my own family.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of this is why I'm
Nice.
afraid. I'm afraid to let go
Yeah.
too much. Uh, uh, to let go of the ego too much, because I feel like the ego is like the hustler. It's like the one who's
That's going to
the
find
one
you the
that's
mate,
driving. You know,
your body, your
everything. The
looks,
podcast, like
your
I
package.
feel like everything is just trying to find someone to have kids with. I thought
That's lovely, mate. That's really nice.
like uh, uh,
You will. I'm pretty sure you
uh,
will.
right. Like I feel like I'd trade it all to be a dad.
Would you
I think
right now?
so.
I don't want to
No.
diminish your thingy, but I think whatever we've not got, we
Mm,
idolize and we kind of build up. But what you're saying is really true. You're a young man, you want to procreate. And that is, if you look at all cultures all around the globe, we're trying to procreate and they do that. Um, there is a large portion of people that don't do that consciously. But if you're saying to me, look, I want that, then I think all of this, you can have a fluffy answer like, "Oh, trust the universe," and maybe you've not let go of the ego enough, and she'll arrive in perfect, form when you least expect it. um, or you can use what you've got to hustle to find the perfect mate, and maybe your quest now is doing that, and somehow you're going to find her. She'll be a guest. This is where I think the karma principle is really useful, because it's like maybe in this lifetime I am supposed to be a dad. I'm supposed to look after others. And maybe in this lifetime I'm not. And that in that way you kind of, I don't know, you're not kind of letting it go to some kind of superficial creator thing, but it's like I am on the right path for me right now in this moment. And if it comes, it comes. If it doesn't, it doesn't. And having that type of mentality is quite wonderful, I think, because you're able to accept when things arise. I think if you're in that mode of, oh fuck, I need to find this, then it must be unsettling and causing quite a lot of cognitive dissonance in your life, and it might be detracting from some of the good energy you're trying to put out. So dealing with that head on, of just finding peace with that discomfort of it not being ideal, because there's nowhere is the
mm.
ideal. And I think you will meet her. You're a good looking lad and you've got a lot going for you. And I think if you, start putting yourself in certain positions, uh, not sexually,
That's what she
but
said.
you will find her. Yeah, that's what she said. I think you will, mate. Yeah, I don't think it's hard to find a mate, because women out there thinking the same. They've got it harder because they're thinking, fuck, my
Hundred.
biological clock's going.
I think about a lot, and I have a lot of sympathy. Like, yeah, a lot of sympathy for because I suppose everyone always like, oh, it's all right, you're a guy, because you can
Yeah,
have
you
you
can
can have
have a
kids
kid
when
when
you're
you're
older.
70.
Um,
Yeah.
and a big part of that is actually why I started looking after myself so much. I was like, I want to
Yeah,
keep
yeah,
everything
yeah.
healthy because actually it's
Motivation.
not a given. And apparently, I heard something recently, but apparently, when men and women struggle to conceive, apparently, like it's about 50-50 as to who's not functioning optimally. But it's like a
Yeah, yeah,
societal
yeah.
thing that we're like, oh, it's the woman. oh, she's too old or whatever.
Yeah,
But
yeah, yeah.
apparently, like half the time, it's the male swimmers as well.
Mate, my
So,
swimmers, my
right.
morphology didn't work 3 times. Yeah, and that's another way. My physical in the last few years, based upon this, you know, connection of mind body, and now it's taken me down the body route. And I was like, wow, look what state I'd got myself in. I didn't realize, and I was blind to it, and I was like refusing to acknowledge it. And so it was another thing of like, wow, you need to get fucking healthy, mate. Like you've got something else to live for as well. So like, be healthy in your body. It's not all about just being intellectual and meditating and knowing it. Like, you've got to integrate mind body. They're together. This is your vehicle. Like, respect it. And it's like that process is really interesting, and it's probably taught me a lot more about equanimity than all my bloody PhD stuff about it. It was like, that's all intellectual blah blah blah, but actually I was really fucking unfit when I was doing that. And now it's like, now it's the work. So at some top point there's going to be this integration, and I'm feeling it more and more. I feel much happier now, and my well-being feels good, but it's linked to everything else, like sleep, exercise, blah blah blah. So there's everything about what everyone speaks about. I think the message keeps coming back to moderation and balance, and no avoiding extremes. Moderation, balance, avoiding extremes all the fucking time. And
See
you might
my eye
hate
roll?
that because it doesn't sound sexy, does it?
That's
Yeah, it's like, I don't want to
that's
I
because
love the extremes.
I struggle with moderation, as I'm sure you're aware. But interesting, isn't it? How? But do you know that men's testosterone naturally decreases at the point of like pregnancy? Yeah.
Wow.
So obviously you need the testosterone to, as you would say, get it up there. But like, it's like a natural thing. So there's something to do with all of these chemicals that when there's a baby around, man's
You
testosterone
need to be in the more
reduces,
chill.
which means he's less likely to go off and
Yeah,
like just fuck off
eat
and
it. Yeah, yeah,
uh,
yeah.
yeah,
Social bonding
which is
is a word for me, that.
so yeah. So but the thing that like allows you to have healthy sperm in the first place, high testosterone, ironically, after you get the job done, will like totally tank
Fucks off.
so that you stick around
Wow, it's
and
beautiful, isn't it?
whatnot. Okay, let's get real tactical.
Yeah,
The example I gave earlier, and if maybe someone's in a similar
yeah.
situation and they have a certain moment in time, like clockwork, and then they get triggered somehow, they feel lonely, they're low on energy. What is a how come in that moment? How can we look at it? How can we be equanimous in a moment such as that?
I think it is really becoming up close and personal with your emotions as you feel them, as they arise, and embracing them. So when you're lonely, you're lonely. When you're happy, you're happy. When you're sad, you're sad. You're fully present with the emotion and experience. The equanimity to loneliness would be recognizing that I've put a dislike onto the loneliness, and based upon that dislike, based upon sense of self creation over time, this is now triggering emotions and feelings, and it's creating a thingy. So equanimity is just noticing, oh, I'm disliking this because I'm perceiving this as loneliness. Cut. It's not loneliness. You being on your own is not loneliness. No one's ever said that that's loneliness, other than an unhappy person on their own going, I'm lonely. You're not objectively lonely there. Your whole body's alive. Your whole cells and everything is still moving, and the energy is alive and kicking. And say it's depleted even, that's signifying your body needs rest. So you're in a restorative state. You're not lonely. You just need, your body's saying, I need to fucking chill, mate. You're pushing me too hard. This high rocks thing is really fucking me up. So give me time to 1-2 hours to be by myself and restore so I can perform for you again. Because if you don't neglect that and you're negative towards your resting periods, then you will just become this type of character that will burn out and have a bloody meltdown at some point. Because you have to embrace the rest. So so I would challenge your very notion of loneliness and say it's resting. And if you're physically on your own, say it's reflection. And if you're tired, you need to sleep, reconceptualize some of your experiences. They don't have to be what you think they are. I'm not lonely, I'm learning. I'm now in a place I can listen to a podcast. I'm now in a place that I can read a book. The human has to have a bit of loneliness in a day to process and be themselves. I think we have a massive tendency to avoid that because we're scared of who we are, because we've been so used to avoiding and suppressing and all kinds of fucking shit and bad healthy coping strategies like drinking and smoking and God knows what. So we're we don't like being alone, so we're constantly trying to get away from it. And then when we're on our own, the paradox is it feels 10 times worse because we're not used to those negative, maladaptive coping strategies. So of course it's going to feel worse. So reconceptualize it all and own your well-being. If you're feeling fucking shit, it's probably because of lack of sleep, lack of this, lack of that, lack of that. Let's figure out what it is. And that's the wisdom part of equanimity coming in, of being it's an intellectual thing as well as a feeling thing. And the two combined, powerful as hell. But if you just focus intellectually, you're never going to get anywhere. And if you just focus feeling level, you're never going to get anywhere. But it's the integration. So it's at all times, open monitoring your experience as it is, practicing acceptance, curiosity, compassion for yourself, compassion for others, and you will just feel fucking great.
Thank you, mate. Yeah, that was awesome. I'm gonna listen to that if it happens again, and I'm gonna use this as a turning point to change my cognitive biases around what's going on in that situation.
Yeah, that'd be cool. That'd be good. Yeah, look at it.
Put some snazzy music on behind it.
Put some snazzy music on. But I think also, if it's lonely, it's lonely. Feel lonely, and that you're okay to feel lonely. Good to feel lonely.
I think I used to be better at it actually, and I would feel that emotion a bit more or whatever. But then this is what happens. We go through cycles, don't we? And then I got into the masculine, high rocks, let's go.
Yeah.
But obviously, it's extremely dopaminergic rather
nice
than
word.
serotonergic. I don't know if that is even a word.
Lovely. Yeah, you're getting chemically.
And obviously, and then dopamine is so closely related to cortisol. So it's stress, dopamine, stress, and we think that the dopamine is serotonin, but actually it's not. So recognizing.
There you go. So so I guess when you're in equanimity, you've got a perfect chemical balance. So if you look talking about equanimity from that perspective, you could say, look, too much of dopamine is not a good thing. Too much of serotonin is not a good thing. It's the balance. It's coming back. You need it all. We need it all. So even you could argue that negative emotions are not negative. We've just labeled them negative. They're just there. And actually, we need them too, because that allows us to experience positive. We need the loneliness so we can be able to be with others. We need the others so we can be able to be lonely. Our conception of whatever, this is a good, this is a bad, all that shit is what is the problem. So if you're equanimous, you're recognizing that the mind's trying to do that and it's trying to conceptualize this as a like or a dislike, but actually it's not really. It's based on self-concept. Most of that's unhealthy. Actually, I can just flick the switch. I'm feeling a bit better now. So it's that type of way of being. So I think another thing is focusing too much on the positive emotions and the negative, as if the negative are there to iron out and not experience, where we have to have the balance of it all. So it's more being comfortable with the discomfort than trying to eradicate it from existence. Like, you know, if I do all of this, I'll never be lonely. Like, that's just the wrong way of thinking about it. It's actually,
I'm laughing because it's good.
how can I? It's like, you know, how can I be more comfortable?
That's literally how I think. Oh. Yeah, if I just do enough podcast episodes, I'll never be lonely. That's basically what I think.
Yeah.
If I do enough sets in the gym,
And
I'll
then you
never be
realise
lonely.
And then you realise that is loneliness.
Yeah, very good.
And then, yeah, so, but I'm with you, mate. It's like fucking, it's a hard terrain to navigate when you're on your own with your own subjective mind making wacky bloody interpretations about phenomenon. And, you know, on my own, you do feel it when I'm with the baby and there's no one around. I feel lonely even though I'm with someone sometimes, you know, and just being okay with it all, being comfortable with the discomfort is quite powerful, and accepting the lack of control becomes a form of control, if you know what I mean, like you're accepting it. So you can't control any of it, but if you can accept it, somehow you're controlling all of it. It's such a fucking paradox all the time.
Yeah, there's so many layers.
Yeah.
Well, I know you've got to go. So before you go, first off, I'll say we need to go to Alton Towers because we've been talking about this.
Yes.
And if
I really want to go
anyone's
Alton Towers.
like, if anyone's made it 1 hour and 48 minutes into this podcast, I want you to message either me or Joey saying that you'd like to come to Alton Towers with us. Let's see what happens.
Wow.
Or just go and buy one of Joey's books. Little plug.
Oh, that would be bloody nice. Yeah, no one's bought one in ages, bastards. Fucking hate you all. Love you all.
Yeah, maybe we should do a group trip to Alton Towers because, yeah, with those T-shirts with "Fuck the Allens." Was it "Fuck the Allens"?
Fuck the
Allen brothers.
For context, this is you putting out on a group, let's go Alton Towers, and it was Andy, Phil, me and you, and none of them replied.
Yeah, I think totally,
like
just left us in the dirt. So we're getting T-shirts
when
made.
we're on the top of bloody... when we were on the top of bloody, what do you call it, the Smiler, they'll be fucking missing out.
See, now this has gone onto the internet. You do realise this has got to happen. Yeah,
exactly. It's become real now.
Yeah, right. I'll get designing.
At least we won't be lonely for that day. Will we be happy, Jason?
Yeah, and I'm already thinking about the dopamine I'll get from this Instagram post.
I know, yeah, God, I like it.
Right. Where should people go to check out your stuff?
They should go fuck themselves. They should go on my website, equanimity.com, and actually fucking buy a book, you bastards. No, they need to go to equanimity.com or Amazon and get a book, yeah, because what I've just said in this podcast is a small snippet of what's in that book. It really is, like, layered, and it involves practical, applications as well, meditations and stuff. It's really, I know, everyone's got a bloody book these days, but what I'm saying is if you like the way I speak, you'll prefer the way I write.
Nice, very nice. And if you like the way he speaks, he has it on Audible as well, don't you?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, I'm going to add another thing into this. If you would be interested,
I'd say the first 10 minutes
in a retreat in the Lake District.
Oh, yeah, nice.
With Joey and me and maybe some other people who are more qualified than me.
Yeah. It'd be good to get a nutrition person to sort the food out.
Yeah.
You can do the plunge pool experience,
pretend to be Wim Hof.
Ice bath.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I could do the equanimity stuff and the meditation stuff.
Yeah,
and we
do some hikes in the lakes.
Early morning sunrise hikes, head torches, and then sunset paddle boards.
Yeah.
Fucking hell. Great,
Summer
wouldn't it?
2025.
Yeah, good
Drop me a
idea.
DM
Later
if you
on.
want to come.
Nice. But it's going to be a lot of money, but it's going to be fucking worth it.
Yeah. Yeah, drop me a DM and tell me how much you'd pay for it. And all tickets include special access to Joey Webber up close.
Wow, yeah, and that's something you really want.
Right, okay, I know you've got to go. Thank you, mate. I
All
really
right,
appreciate
mate.
you.
I love the
And
conversation.
let's do
Yeah.
something IRL ASAP. All right,
Sweet,
bro.
Broheim. Enjoy yourself without anyone else.
Love you, mate.
Love you, bye.
Bye-bye.